What is up, everybody? My name is James D. Fiore, and this is Blackballed. I'm going to enjoy tonight's show very much. And one of the reasons why is because sometimes you work with someone and you do a lot of podcasts together and you get to know that person. And the journey to my guest tonight, the journey of our friendship has been really kind of interesting. We still haven't met in real life, which is interesting because I still consider him a friend. But like every other friend I've had, at one point in time, he's blocked me on Twitter. and I'm sort of used to that. When someone blocks me on Twitter, do you know what I think? A lot of people would probably think, oh my God, what's going on? I'm like this. That's just the next phase of our relationship. It's going to be awesome. It was just a break, as Douglas Connors would say. And he's my guest tonight. Please welcome to the show, Mr. Douglas Connors. Douglas, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing well. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing well.
We were just on a break like Ross and Rachel.
That's right. That's right. You know, it's funny, though, because I used to get all like, where about it? Like, what is going on? How could they? And then I realized something, and someone else actually told me that. I thought it, and I didn't say anything, and someone else told me this, and they're like, James, you have the kind of personality where when you talk to you, things seem fine. When James types, things don't seem so fine. And there's different opinions as to why that is. I happen to think that I type the way I talk, but I think people want to receive typing in a little more, like there's more etiquette in typing than talking. Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure if this surprises any of my viewers. I don't really have all that. I don't put a bunch of stock in etiquette. It's not my thing. It's not my brand, you know. I'm glad that you're here though, because I saw something today, and I want to start off with this. We're not going to drag on. We're not going to dunk on Polyev all night, but I want to talk about it just at the beginning because I think it's an important thing to sort of look at from the perspective of, you know, what exactly are we dealing with when a leader gets to a point, hold on, there it is, where he puts out things that seem remarkably old school, and I'll sort of unpack that a little bit more after we take a look at this. This came out today, and I find it completely absurd and almost like a throwback to I compared it to Willie Horton. Remember sadistic murderer Luca Magnotta, who chopped up his victim and nailed the body parts across the country? Trudeau's Bill C-83 has freed him from maximum security into medium security prison, where he enjoys more freedom and leisure and closer contact with other people. What is Trudeau thinking? There was another tweet. I don't have it yet, but or I'm not even sure if I care to bring it up. But there was another tweet that basically said that that he's living a better life than most Canadians. Holy shit, Douglas! Like, I am very not forgiving when it comes to politicians, but I am very much in the camp of, like, when Pierre Poilievre has what I think is a good idea, I'll just say it's a good idea. This is such a horrible take, and such a sewer soaked statement. Yep. I'm almost speechless, and everyone knows I have a very big mouth. It takes a lot to make me speechless. I mean, I know your take probably, but seriously though, like, other than the fact that he's just an idiot and an asshole, what do you make of that kind of strategy? Like, are we? Is this the bottom, or does he have one?
He does not have a bottom. Right? He strikes me as a very much. How do you put it? When you're competing and you want to win, whether it's in sports, whether you're a political strategist, whether you're a business strategist, there's an expression that goes, never let anything distract you from the primary objective. Yeah, I believe he's that kind of person when it comes to politics. He wants to win, and anything is okay to win. And if you're not going to go for the jugular, I think that he thinks you're weak. So he does that. Now we have to remember that there is a by-election tonight in
Yes.
Durham. So a lot of those tweets probably have a lot to do with those two tweets, because remember, his whole thing is Canada is broken. So of course he would want people going into a by-election thinking that people living in prison have it better than the rest of us, as insane as that sounds. And if we do, if you put that tweet back up for a second,
Yeah. Sorry.
we can look at it there. And there's a couple of things that are very interesting about it. Laura Babcock has this thing where she looks at things and deconstructs them to see like why certain things. So why talk about? They tried this play a couple of months ago with Bernardo,
Yes.
right? So this is a rerun. But if we go
Yeah.
through this, okay, remember sadistic murderer Luca Magnotta, okay, blah, blah, blah. Bill C-83 has freedom from maximum security. Notice the word freed,
Yeah, I know.
not transferred, freed.
And in the arena of possibly too much information, to your point, I spent 4 days in December, and we don't have to get into why, in the minimum security wing of the Ottawa prison. I did not feel free, my friend.
Yeah.
I did not. So that, yes, the language is very hyperbolic. Go
Now,
ahead.
Bill C-83 has freed him from maximum security. I'm pretty sure it has something to do with the parole board or something like that. Right?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that there's a bunch of people that made that decision. It wasn't Bill C-83. There wasn't a Bill C-83 that was written expressly to free him from maximum security. The proper word actually that should be used here is transferred into a medium security prison where he enjoys more freedom and leisure and closer contact with other people. That is, it doesn't. It is discipline. Because didn't we have this whole thing about interfering with?
Your audio is cutting out.
Oh, sorry. Didn't we
That's
have
okay.
all this thing with interfering with the judiciary with SNC Lavalin? And we all decided that it was a no-no. And then when
Yeah.
Bernardo's thing came around, we all said, hey, the government of the day doesn't decide who gets to stay in, who goes out, how long the sentences are in, when you get parole, when you don't. And then this whole Picton thing came out, and then all of us said, oh my God, can you believe he's actually getting a hearing? It's like in my world, he would never get a hearing, which goes against every constitutional principle ever.
Yeah.
It's like, doesn't matter. They seem to think that the criteria is if you are an awful person, then therefore we should just lock you up and throw away the key forever. And while there's a lot of people that think of that, and there's a lot of people that do deserve to be locked up with the key thrown away, or I shouldn't say a lot, but a select few that are most that are irredeemable. But the basic function of our incarceration system is punishment, yes, but rehabilitation, because we first assume that people are redeemable. So
Yeah.
what happens, the problem with this type of tweet is if we start getting upset when the government of the day, while a certain government of the day is in office, the Parole Board of Canada makes a decision about someone who is universally considered unpopular, and then we blame that decision on the government
Yeah.
rather than the people who actually made that decision. And we start saying, hey, this person is so terrible, he doesn't even deserve, or she doesn't even deserve to have the hearing that everybody, by virtue of the fact that the Constitution exists, is allowed to have. But for this one person, or these few people, we're going to carve out special exceptions. Then the next person comes along, can move that bar a little further lower. And then all of
Yeah.
a sudden, people that we don't like become, the people that protested at Black Lives Matter, or for conservatives, eco warriors, or like this. And then for the extreme left, people who trade in oil in an unethical manner and whatnot. It's like there are principles, and we have principles for a reason, and we always adhere to the principles, and we do not make exceptions to the principles. And this guy clearly keeps on saying Canada is broken, but he's the one that keeps on putting out tweets saying that we should break Canada even more.
Yeah. It appeals to people's most base emotions as well.
Revenge, retribution.
retribution, revenge. I mean, I would go far as saying, not torture, but they they're only happy if people who are in prison are suffering. And I remember talking to Karima about this, about how we were talking about a particular issue that I thought would increase the risk of women being raped in prison. We don't have to go into what that was. It doesn't matter. That was what I was thinking of. And she made this point, and it was such a good point. And now I usually just talk about this because it's more overarching. We have a responsibility, as much as people hate to hear it, especially conservatives, we have a responsibility to make prisons safe.
Yes.
If the concept of rehabilitation is even partially true, if anybody ever gets raped or abused or killed or assaulted in prison, that's on the warden. That's on the prison.
Yep.
And so this idea that we are upset if somebody, and listen, the difference between maximum security and medium security prison is like not being in isolation and a little bit more time in the yard. And that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
I was in a minimum security prison for 4 days. I literally just hung out on my top bunk and read the entire time I was there. Right. But like, you're in a dorm with 24 other prisoners. It's pretty intimidating. There's even minimum security prison has its like drawbacks, right? I don't know what medium would be like. This is minimum. I don't know. I certainly have no idea what maximum sounds like. You're just by yourself all the time. I think that's kind of what it is like. But either way, this idea that if the prisoner who committed a heinous crime, obviously, but if they aren't suffering 24/7, then the system's not working. I don't think people have a good idea of what jail is supposed to be. Jail is not supposed to be like, what's that? The Circles of Hell. What's that guy? Dante's Inferno, right? Like it's not supposed to be like that. Like that's not the idea of what prison is supposed to be like. I think Scandinavian countries have a better sort of grasp on the whole rehabilitation aspect. But like,
yes.
We can't pretend that the recidivism rate is not going to be is not so big because of how flawed our prison system is. I don't really know the back end of and the innards of Bill C-83. I have no idea what that entails. I don't know if you do. Excuse me.
Not the ins and outs of it, no.
Right. But if the idea of transferring these guys to medium security prison, I mean, I would like to know who never gets transferred from medium security prison. And even if there is a debate to be had that these guys shouldn't, the way that it's being framed is so cheap and disgusting.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I know that part of Bill C-83, part of it was to address the fact that, Black people and Indigenous people are severely overrepresented.
Mm.
So it was meant to, that was part of it. I don't know what the rest of it is specifically. The thing that you mentioned is very accurate. It's, if you believe that jail or prison incarceration exists for revenge and retribution, then yes, you hope when people go to jail, in that case, that bad things happen to them.
Yeah.
That people do to them there things just as bad or worse.
Like it's Thunderdome.
Other people, on the outside, right? But we all hear those jokes, right? It's like, ooh, he's going to jail. He better, I hope he doesn't drop the soap. Ha, 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 ha. Yeah. Like that's a joke.
Yeah.
Like that's a joke. I mean, we're literally joking about people getting raped.
Yeah.
Right? So, I mean, that's, if we accept the premise that we judge a society by the manner in which it treats its most vulnerable citizens and its incarcerated populations, and we create prisons that are an environment where first you get harmed more, or you're likely to get as harmed as you have an opportunity for rehabilitation. And I'm not talking about a magnata in this case specifically,
right?
But in general, right? And there's nothing in the prison system to help people gain new skills or life skills. like back in the day when Pierre Poilievre was in government and the Harper government canceled prison farms, for example,
Yeah.
in 2010. Right? So no skills, no rehabilitation, no psychological services. You can get raped at any time. You can get beaten up at any time. Because most of the people that go to jail come out at some point. And there are no transition services, no way to get a job after, no supervision after, no help to, not released, with the same clothes you came in on in the middle of winter, with no home to go to, no nothing. What do you freaking expect is going to happen?
Yeah.
Right? You want to stop recidivism, then you got to set people up for success once they've, quote unquote, graduated from the incarceration system. So the conservatives have this law and order thing that they've had for a long time. So, for example, mandatory minimum sentences, a lot of them which have been overturned by the courts as unconstitutional or cruel and unusual punishment. They often talk and lock them up and throw away the key terms. Every time somebody who's notorious comes up for parole or gets transferred to medium security prison, they make this big deal like it's the government that did this, as opposed to it's our incarceration system working without the interference of elected officials.
Yeah, they go too far with the mandatory minimums.
Yes.
I'm for mandatory minimums for any sex abuse against kids. But other than that, I'm not.
And for all of those things, the penalties are too weak
Totally.
to begin with, because these are laws that have been on the books for a while, and there was a time that, well, most of these laws were written by rich white men,
Who like
and the penalties depended on what your value to society was. So crimes against children, very low sentences. Crimes against women, higher sentences, but not as high as crimes against another man. And then crimes against racialized men, less than against crimes against men of your own race, white.
Yeah, that's weird.
In that case. So, but if you look at the sentencing and the guidelines and all that kind of stuff, it's really divided by that. All of that needs to be started all over from scratch. And, the sentencing based on how vulnerable the person was, how able was that person able to defend themselves against what you wanted. Did you pick on someone vulnerable? Did you prey on someone vulnerable because you knew you could get more? Did you prey on someone of another race or gender sexual orientation because you thought nobody would care about them? They were easier mark, or nobody would come to help them, or that you would get a lighter sentence, it won't be so bad. All those factors, those should be aggravating factors as well.
Yeah, they should be. I'm not going to show this tweet. I'm going to read it. But this is the one I was trying to find earlier. It's Pierre Poilievre. And he says, life is not bad after 8 years of Trudeau. If you're a sadistic murderer, for everyone else, it's terrible. Trudeau's not worth the crime or the cost. Okay, that's just ridiculous. When I compared it to Willie Horton, I was comparing that tweet to the Willie Horton thing. And this is the Willie Horton ad. I just want to show it. This is from 1988. This is from George Bush Sr.'s campaign when he was running for president. Oh, sorry. Hold on.
Mike Dukakis and Willie Horton changed our lives forever. He was serving a life term without the possibility of a parole when Governor Dukakis gave him a few days off. Horton broke into our home. For 12 hours, I was beaten, slashed, and terrorized. My wife, Angie, was brutally raped. When his liberal experiment failed, Dukakis simply looked away. He also vetoed the death penalty bill. Regardless of the election, we worry that people don't know enough about Mike Dukakis.
Yeah. It's just, it's so cheap. I don't know what's going on there, but, oh, sorry. I have something else going on here. It's so cheap to sort of saddle the crimes of a person. But it's so easy to convince a populace that there's a cause and effect happening.
Yep.
You know that Dukakis wasn't sitting there going, I'd like to release people that will rape and kill. I think that's a great idea. Or even if he was being a little short-sighted on something, to saddle a person with the responsibility of the actions of another person is ridiculous. It counters logic. It makes you seem cheap, and to just the tweet. Pierre Poilievre, life is not bad after life is not bad after 8 years of Trudeau if you're a sadistic murderer.
Yeah.
Like, for everyone else, it's terrible. For everyone else.
Everyone else here in the chat, because I'm assuming that you're all not sadistic murderers here. I know I'm going out on a limb here.
They're living much worse than sadistic murderers.
But raise your hands if you'd like to trade spaces with Magnotta and experience life in a medium security prison rather than the life you have now.
Right?
If you would think you were better off, please, let us know. Speak up.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it is so completely stupid.
Yeah.
Yes. But the point is, it's not about being logical. It's about bypassing the logic center in your brain and going straight to the emotion to get you mad. So you open up your wallet and give your money and you give your data.
Is it condescending to his voters, or do you think his voters know that he's like, haha, he's really sticking it to the government and I don't care? Or do you think it's, wow, he's right? Like, which one do you think it is?
I think there's a portion of both. But for either, it's condescending to his potential voters, to the people he's courting, and he's literally insulting their intelligence. He's literally saying, I think you're this stupid that you would buy this.
Yeah. It reminds me a lot of the barbaric snitch line. Mm-hmm. Just that same base level,
Yep.
Here we are, like can we tickle your angry bone for a second? Yep. Oh, and if we can you call this number?
If you don't like crime, there's 911. But if you don't like these crimes in particular,
if you don't like Muslims,
we have a special number for these people.
And to say nothing about the Italians who backhand their wives on Sundays, right? Yeah. I'm Italian. I'm allowed to say that. I don't do that. I'm just
this is allegedly from the party that wants smaller government and less bureaucracy. Let's create a special stitch line especially for people that we don't like.
Yeah.
And again, it's the people we don't like this week because they didn't like the Muslims for a while after September 11th. Now it's trans people they don't like, and they're more than happy than have the Muslim people help them protest against trans people. But then again, it's again an insult to the intelligence, and they're playing people because when they say, hey, Muslim people, you're on our side against the trans people, they're actually relying on the stereotype of the angry, vicious, and violent Muslim.
Yeah.
That they stoked at first to try to get us in the gay community to say, yeah, let's put these Muslims in jail, while they were showing us pictures and video allegedly of ISIS throwing allegedly gay people off roofs. Go over there and try to live your gay life, but see what you do there like this. And to try to get us to hate our fellow Muslims here in Canada. And we didn't bite. And what happens? About a decade later, well, gee, we weren't able to get the gay people to hate the Muslims, so let's see if we can get the Muslims to hate the gay people.
Yeah.
They literally use people. They literally use people.
Every time I see a Queers for Palestine banner, I get a little confused. I have to admit. That's like seeing an Atheists for Saudi Arabia. No.
There are certain things. Anarchists of the world unite.
Yeah.
There are certain things that just don't make sense, man. There are certain things that don't make sense. But it's again, if you just take it on the emotional level and then bypasses, and you give your data and you give your money, that's one thing, right? They win. But if you actually stop and think about it and you say, wait a minute, these people really think I'm a stupid motherfucker. If you have to stop and think about it for a second, though, you have to not let, when you see a message like that and it triggers your, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. That should be your cue to say, well, maybe I should check whether or not this is actually happening.
Let me ask you this. Let's pivot away from Pierre for a second, because I'm just
gets enough of my attention.
Yeah. I don't think Sunny Ways can defeat this strategy.
No.
But I also don't really have much faith in tough guy Trudeau, because it just seems counterintuitive for him to be tough guy Trudeau, especially when he is, or at least he was elected at first, doing politics differently, not to paraphrase Max Bernier, but you know what I mean? Like to do politics in a positive way, Sunny Ways. I mean, is he going to have to get down in the mud, or can he stay out of the mud and win? And you're talking to a guy who doesn't think he has a chance in winning. So,
I don't know if he has to get down in the mud, but when they go low, we go high is definitely not going to work here. like this. If he's going low and his chin is at foot level, kick him in the teeth, right? It's
Yeah.
like, and I think there's a lot of Canadians that would like to see it. It's like, don't be so diplomatic, don't be so cool or detached, whatnot. Just like, give him a good swift kick in the teeth. That to not go in the mud would require tons of opposition research and being able to frame things in a manner that appeals to the same centers, the emotions and whatnot. It involves practicing the political dark arts, but for good, as opposed to for ill. But you're going to have to, you're going to have to get somewhat. You're going to have to get your hands dirty, if not roll all the way into the mud. That's for sure. You're going to have to do a little torquing and some preemptive framing, and the way that the Conservatives do.
I'm not
but
too.
preferably not as cheaply as they do.
I'm a little concerned about Max Valakat. So
he's the new communications person that they brought in to sort of redo the image and
correct,
redo messaging.
I've known Max on an acquaintance level for like 25 years, something like that. So Max Valakat at first owned a company called Youthography.
Okay.
Youthography, as the name implies, specialized to marketing to, at the time they were called the Gen Ys, I think, when I was young. And they were very much vilified for doing kind of things that, and listen, I'm not saying he's like this now. I'm going to give you the chronology of Max Valakat. So it was like the year 2000 or something. And he got high school students to, he gave them a bunch of disposable cameras. And he was like, hey, take pictures of the best places that to hang out. And then he'd give them back. They give the cameras back. He'd give them each $100 or something like that. And then in all the places in the pictures, he would put ads for his clients.
Right.
Some people might say that's a really good idea. Some people might say it's a little invasive because it's young people, whatever. He also has the distinction of trying to open up a Nike store in Kensington Market. Which was like, it got vandalized daily, right? Then after, then in the like mid 2000s or whatever, in the early 2010s, he was very, I don't know how to put this. He's bisexual and he was very open about it, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But the way that he would express himself was like he was talking about how he went to Pride and he was so proud. But his statement was, I had a dick in my ass on Friday and a sign in my hands on Saturday. And everyone's just like, okay, like, what does that even mean? So it was just sort of like brazen and stuff like that. And it's like, do whatever you want. But the way that you're talking about it seems a little, I don't know, even for me, and I have no etiquette, I was still like, my, oh my, like, oh dear. Like, that's how I felt, right?
You the first question is, again, as a communications person, is which audience are you targeting with that one?
Right. And so
but
anyways,
other audiences are watching at the same time, right?
Yeah. So who knows what sort of like voyage of self-improvement he may have gone on since then. But I am a little concerned about, because I haven't seen very much energy placed into new communication strategy. Yeah. So do you think that they're falling behind, or are they biding their time? Like, what do you think the strategy is here?
This one's a one or the other. It could be falling behind. I know, however, because Trudeau is a boxer, that he tends to play the long game and likes to set stuff up. So there could be something like that they're waiting. I mean, we are still about 19 to 20 months, and it's, how do you put it? If you've got stuff on him, yes, a lot of people say, use it now, destroy him now. But you have to understand, the first thing about Conservatives is that they love money. And the Conservatives just raised $35 million in one quarter with him at the helm.
Yeah.
And he's riding high in the polls. So if he's riding high in the polls and making money, There's no way anybody's getting rid of him, even if he's the most detestable person on earth, and all of them secretly hate him. They're going to keep him because they love money more than they hate him. If he starts dropping in the polls, but is still bringing in $30-something billion a quarter, they will still keep him because that's how much they love money.
Right.
And that whole tack way to the right after the convoy was conservatives seeing Give, Send, Go cash and GoFundMe cash go into the convoy and go, hey, wait a minute. Those are donations that should be coming to us that are going somewhere else. Whoa, 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 whoa. We can't have that. Let's start kissing up to the convoy here because we need our cut of that. Right? So they will embrace whatever. Doesn't matter how vile it is. If there are some dollar signs attached to it and a significant cut of it is coming towards the party.
Yeah.
So the only way that the party would overthrow him is if he stopped being a fundraising draw.
Yeah, he's not going anywhere. There's a lot of people that think that David Parker is going to somehow be successful in a coup of the leadership of the CPC with some
I'm sure he will try.
I'm sure he'll try, but it's not going to happen.
He's stupid, ambitious. He's stupid enough, ambitious enough, and vindictive enough to actually try it. And I think
he still wears a goatee. I mean,
yes, yeah, but I think he thinks he's a bigger deal than he is, and is ready to act on it.
I think so too.
You wouldn't have put out that Jenny Byrne tweet and whatnot. It's like there's one rule in conservative circles, and that's conservative friends don't tell on friends. And he broke that.
Well, except in Ontario, but yeah. But he's a regional guy. Like he's an Alberta guy. He probably has some sway over a certain sect of the demographics in Alberta, but he's not going to and I know I'm at odds with David Wallace on this, but like he's not going to find a way to like eject Pierre Poilievre unless there's some scandal that is just so ridiculous. Because I think Poilievre is scandal proof. I think if we found out tomorrow that Poilievre has been banging his babysitter and has a bastard with some chick in fucking Argentina, oh my God, his numbers would probably go up. Oh wow, he's a man's man or something, right? Like
this. There might be some moderate conservatives that would like this, but then he would gain some PPCers. It would be a zero-sum game.
Yeah. Cassie makes a point that I've made many times, and I'm not saying that I'm happy about this. In fact, I'll preamble this by saying I think Justin Trudeau might be having his best pocket of leadership in the last 6 months, but that he's entered the Kathleen Wynne stage of his regime. Yep. And when that happens, fair or not fair, they're usually gone. Like he could walk on water from his cottage to Queen's Park or something, and it wouldn't matter. It's just too late, and I'm sorry about that. I think if Kathleen Wynne got elected in the last Liberal election, even though I don't think she deserved it, I somehow still think that she would have governed better over the next 4 years than she did in the previous 10 or whatever it was.
Yes. I'm of a different view. I think that she did deserve it. She had brought the budget back into balance. She was doing some stuff for post-secondary education. She had made it free. And she was working on other things, and she could have left things in a way, 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 way better state. But like I said, there was too much baked in. And at that time, I think we were at 13 or 15 years of consecutive Liberal government in the province, which is a lot. The thing I don't understand with this Trudeau fatigue thing is that he's been there for a little bit over 8. Yes, there's been 3 elections, but he's literally just completed 2 mandates, and not even a full one, because technically by law, a mandate is 5 years.
But is it 4 elections though? How many elections has it been?
3.
3. That's a lot in 8 years.
That's a lot in 8 years. But it's like, it's almost, there's a lot of people I think that are feeling fatigued because they are being told he's been here too long. But I mean, we had Chrétien Martin for 13. We had Mulroney for a full 8. But I mean, he pissed off the country with GST.
Yeah.
But if it wasn't for that, he probably would have gotten elected another time as well. We've had governments and leaders for more than 8 years. We've had several of them. But this is, if you go back and you look at history, this isn't particularly long. He should be able to get another mandate.
I want to say something to Cassie's point. Cassie is saying there must be some confidence in Trudeau, for no one has mentioned Mark Carney in a while. And then Ryan says Cassie is right. JT fatigue is definitely a welcome problem. True Western democracy would have him propping up a capable replacement. So this is going to sound really nerdy, really politically nerdy, but I've talked to people inside the Liberal Party and the Conservative Party, a staffer with a Conservative senator and a Liberal senator, an independent senator. And they all said the same thing to me. This is going back over the last 6 months at different times. This election is, by many people, and I've said this to you before, but many people in the Liberal caucus and the Liberal Party itself, like half their caucus, feel like the next election is just not winnable. They also see the Trudeau fatigue. They do not think that they have much of a chance in winning at all. They literally feel the same way that the Kathleen Wynne Liberals felt, and they were right to feel that way. And her approval rating was like negative 8,000% or whatever it was. Mark Carney and Chrystia Freeland, who probably are the two most likely candidates to put their names forward, let's just say, for the next leadership, don't want to, because they don't want the next election, an election that many people think is a loser election. They don't want, as two potential star candidates, they don't want to run in that election, because then they're one and done. Because they don't think it's winnable.
Yeah, it's the same reason Pierre Poilievre didn't run for the leadership of the Conservatives last time around.
Or the reason why Stephen Harper didn't resign in his last election. Yeah. Or the reason that Paul Martin didn't, or whatever. It's just there. Kim Campbell, great example, right?
Right.
Mulroney resigns. They put someone in that they knew, even though they knew they would lose the next election. So they put, and I'm not trying to take anything away from Kim Campbell, but they were like, who should we put in, considering we're probably going to lose the next election? Why not a woman? I think they kind of did that, right? I just do. And so that is the reason why Trudeau is still there. It's not because his caucus has confidence in him. It's because half the caucus, it's because the major candidates that would replace him are like, I ain't fucking running in this next election. Are you kidding? It's a one and done for me if I do.
Yeah. I do think that there's a faction of the Liberal think tank or the party or the caucus that do believe that their chances are better with him than with anybody else, just because nobody campaigns like him. Yeah, you have to give it to him on that one. That's the one thing that everybody does. If any of his opponents fear anything, it's his ability to campaign. And I think that that's why there's been such a concerted effort at character assassination to try to make him so unlikable, to put him in a hole so deep before he starts that he can't campaign his way out of it, has been the strategy. Because in that first election, everybody thought for sure that we were going to have Prime Minister Tom Mulcair. That first election,
really?
Back in, oh yeah. It was
as soon as Tom Mulcair started smiling, I was like, I'm out.
Oh yeah, but before the writ was dropped, it was already decided that Harper was leaving.
Yeah,
it was already. But the Liberals and the New Democrats were about even neck and neck in the polls, so it was really a competition in that election between Trudeau and Mulcair would emerge as the replacement. And the first few weeks of the election were that. And when we had that debate on the stage with Tom Mulcair on the I think it was on the 20th anniversary of the death of Pierre-Elliott Trudeau, he was, trying to punch Justin Trudeau around and asking about separation in Quebec. Because what's your number then, right? It's, because he's, there's the Clarity Act, and what had happened is that the NDP in Quebec, because they had won big in Quebec, went in there and signed something called the Sherbrooke Declaration. And the Sherbrooke Declaration was something that said that the NDP would recognize that in the case of a referendum, 50% plus one vote was enough, despite the Clarity Act. Now we have to understand that the Clarity Act doesn't give a threshold. It just says it has to be a clear majority on a clear question, without having defined what a clear question and a clear majority is.
Like a leadership race, the way that like if you win with 54%, you probably want to resign. Like that
exactly.
Kind of thing?
Exactly. Like not a leadership race. Danielle Smith is about to go through one. The word escapes me now, but it's sort of like a confirmation vote or something.
Confidence?
Leadership review.
Oh, right. Okay.
Vote. But we had to look, right, those first two questions, right, those first two referendum questions for the Quebec referendums, they weren't particularly clear questions, right? Especially the second one, right? Do you give us the authority to negotiate a sovereignty agreement association, failing that, which blah, 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 right? It was like 130-something word question or 140-something word question. It was ridiculous. So it had to be a clear question. Just, do you want to separate, yes or no? That's a clear
What was
question.
that? That was 5149 or something?
50.4 to 49.6 or something like that. It was, it was that close. But that was that 134 word question. And if you were walking around Montreal at that time, they had signs saying like, we, yes, right, we, and the O was a loonie. So suggesting that vote yes, and we will be able to keep the Canadian dollar. That's not your decision. We, and then the O was like a daisy, like peace and love. Say yes and we'll be peace and love. It's like, you can't guarantee that there isn't going to be some battle.
Yeah.
As a result over borders, that you're just going to like separate and it's going to be all peaceful. You can't guarantee that. So they were making these weird types of promises. And then we found out later in Chantal Hébert's book, French Kiss, that they didn't have a plan for what would happen if they had won.
Yeah.
So they would be completely screwed, pretty much like Brexit. They didn't think that they were actually going to win, and then they won it, and they said, oh, God, now we're screwed. And everything that they promised wouldn't happen with Brexit is happening. Right? The standard of living and all that kind of stuff. And difficulty making free trade deals and exporting stuff and all the things. They said, no, none of that will change. Well, yeah, it does change because votes have consequences.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So you...
By the way, just to take us back to Tom McCarroll just for a second,
Yeah.
he's the only guy I ever saw that whenever he smiled, it looked like he was taking a shit.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Whoever gave him that advice was just dumb.
Not comfortable
Like,
smiling at all. Your
And he
nickname
was
is
dumb
Angry
advice.
Tom. The last thing you should be doing is smiling.
It was dumb advice he was given. He was dumb to take it. But as I keep on repeating often, like this is also a man who was a lawyer, who was brought into court for a defamation suit, and didn't know how to pull the ripcord. Like this, and then he was found guilty of defamation. So he's a guy that was running for leader of the opposition. If I was running in that campaign against him, I said, a judge has literally said that this person will say absolutely anything, no matter how true, about his opponent.
Yeah.
Roll the tape of him on that show, right? And that would have been my campaign right there, right?
Because you can't go from prosecutorial Tom to awkward smile, I think I'm constipated Tom. You can't. You have to stay angry. You have to be in the debates. He should have been like, the Senate scandal made me realize that a government could be in power for a decade and completely lose their way. Like he needed to stay professorial and prosecutorial, and instead he went like this. Well, I think we'd be a great government for the government of Canada. And there's just like, whoa, dude.
But not only that, right? The seeds to his defeat were planted by signing that sovereignty, the Sherbrooke Declaration. It's like they were so focused on keeping what they called Forteresse Québec.
Yeah.
They said, how are you going to sell in, because everybody likes to say the rest of Canada. It's not the rest of Canada. It's everywhere in Canada except Quebec, right? It's like all of Canada except Quebec is not the rest of Canada. It's all of Canada except Quebec. Yeah. I've never understood that phrasing, the ROC. It's like, but how do you go into Quebec and tell that movement, 50% plus one vote's going to be enough to separate the country, and then go campaign in a federal election in the rest of the damn country, or in all of the country, and expect that that's going to fly?
Yeah.
And then he was pro childcare for the nation, which is great, but Quebec already had a child care plan for about 12 or 13 years, and there was going to be no additional benefit to Quebec from that plan. All they could have taken, all that would have happened is, okay, now we have some federal money, we'll take that, we'll apply that to the funds that the child care we're already using, and we'll free up those funds to do something else with it. That's all. That wasn't going to create any new spaces in Quebec.
They could have even negotiated with Quebec and been like, what areas can we funnel that money to in order for you to feel like you're being treated fairly? To which Alberta would have said, why are they getting so much money?
Yeah. But there was nobody in Quebec when they were hearing that campaign that we're not going to get extra from childcare because we already have it. We've already spent the money for the last 12 or 13 years. Yes. And there's nobody in the rest of Canada that's going to vote for a party that's going to support 50% plus one to break up the country.
Yeah.
There was no way he could win that election. And then he stood on that debate stage and he tried. He did the one thing that a lawyer is never supposed to do. Never ask a question to which you don't already know the answer.
Oh, what was that? And it was a number thing. What was the number?
Exactly.
again?
It's like 50%. Well, what's your number, Justin Trudeau? What's your number? And
He's
he
like
thought,
12
Justin
or
Trudeau
whatever
would
it
say
was.
60%. And he goes, my number, you want to know my number? My number's 9. The 9 judges of the Supreme Court.
That's right.
Boom.
Boom. Yeah.
Voltaire went in, chin up, ass out, and he got his glass jaw knocked out by the boxer.
Do people remember how effective Trudeau was during that campaign? Because listen, everyone knows I don't. Everyone knows I don't like him anymore.
People are studying that campaign in all classes. I mean, his first announcement where he was walking, where he had the sleeves rolled up and say, "They say this about me, they say that about me." First rule in politics has always been never repeat the things that people say about you in your own ads, and he did.
Yeah, he was so different and so effective, and honestly, so surprising. Because I saw him in, I interviewed him in 2012. I saw him again at Jim Flaherty's funeral. I don't remember what year that was. I saw him when he was campaigning in 2015. He came to the beaches. He met my son. My son was like 1, and I was kind of excited at the idea of a Justin Trudeau prime minister. Listen, we had just done a decade of Harper, and I was absolutely completely deflated, right? Like I didn't think he ate babies like that. Like, do you remember they put that in the subway in Toronto?
I don't think he ate babies, but I don't think he would have mind standing by somebody who was sauteing.
I think if somebody had baby blood on their mouth, he probably would have wiped it if it would have secured him a vote, right? Like you
got something there.
Yeah, but there was something exciting about it. For me, it got a little schmaltzy when it felt like that first year he was still campaigning. I was like, okay, we've seen this. Like, can go to governing now. Like, stop jogging with the Mexican leader. Like, just go and work. Like, I don't want to see the campaigning anymore. Yeah. But anyways, and then whatever. I have Trudeau fatigue, but not enough to vote for Poilievre. Right, that's the way I'm looking at it. I will vote NDP in every single federal election for the rest of my life until they have a chance to wreck the family car, because they've never had that chance yet. And I'd rather see them fuck up the country than the two parties that have been revolving back and forth for the last 160 years or whatever it is.
I understand that take.
Yeah, but. I am not sure Sonny Ways is going to do it this time, and I'm not sure people buy it when he acts tough. So I don't know what he's going to do this time. But Max Valaquette, I don't know if that's the guy that you want helping you. And I think I will predict a replacement in the comms department, replacing Valaquette between now and the next election.
Yeah. He needs some Sonny Ways. He needs some, but he can't run on it exclusively.
That's right.
And he's had several phases, right? He had a Sonny Ways phase, and then he grew the beard, like this, I'm serious, and then he had the dad phase where he's like all keeping us safe during COVID, and I don't think he's found the next one. Because he's been a little the next reinvention of himself. He hasn't found it. Like I mentioned, I do believe that there's a certain core of people that believe that because of his campaigning skills, he will find it. I do believe that a lot of people that are not thinking like, oh, the polls are not real or all kinds of stuff, like the polls are real, like this. But this is also prime kicking the tires time.
Yeah, right? Yeah, it is.
There's no consequence at the moment, right? To be flirting with the conservatives, batting eyelashes, playing a little footsie under the table. Oh, maybe I'll consider them. And it's not like time is Poilievre's friend. The more you get to know him and see him, it's not like you like him more.
Mm-hmm. No.
And he started.
That's like being like, this genital word is getting a lot more attractive the more I look at it. Like it's not. Yeah.
And something that they teach us in acting is never start a scene at 11. because
Yeah.
you've got nowhere to go, right? If it's a scene where you're supposed to get to 11 out of 10 at one point, if you start at 11, what happens? You just get more strident and shrill and whatnot. He started at 13. But yeah.
Yeah.
Everything is broken. Trudeau's the most corrupt prime minister ever. Really? I mean, because the government you were a part of had a cabinet minister go to jail. Just saying, objectively. The first election you won that got you your seat, after 5 years of denying it, your party then went into court and pleaded guilty to having cheated in the election.
Yeah.
Actually win it. It's like,
if we see like accusations
Bruce
of
Carson
like,
went to court. Arthur Porter went to court. So a few of them were convicted too. You have Senator Don Meredith, who apparently was a man of God, who was placing interesting phone calls to people who were underage.
a man of God doing something untoward? You don't say.
I'm just like saying, like, really, the most like this is not even the most corrupt government of my lifetime,
Yeah.
right? It's like it's the least corrupt government of my lifetime. 50 years, but Mulroney was more corrupt.
I don't.
I'd say he had the ad scam thing, not the ad scam, the Airbus thing.
The Airbus thing. I mean, I don't know. I think the word corrupt is a little weird. I don't think SNC Lavalin was like, the Trudeau government is totally innocent of all wrongdoing. I never bought that, even though I don't like what's her face that I forget her name. Yeah, I thought that she acted very sleazily and underhanded during that situation, but I thought that she was dealing with people who were equally kind of, in a totally different way, a little sleazy. Yeah,
absolutely. But the thing is that, and then we got Chris St. Martin, we had Shawinagate, and then we had the whole advertising contracts thing, and then we had Harper again. Mike Duffy and the Senate scandal, and
well, that was it. The Duffy part was a non-scandal until Nigel Wright made it one.
Exactly.
So funny.
Exactly, because Duffy had actually done everything right up until that.
Well, I wouldn't say right, but he followed the horribly entitled rules of the Senate.
Yes, but he also took time to ask, like, are you sure I should be running for PI? I really feel I should be running for Ontario. No, you need to run for PI. Are you sure? Because I really, really think I should be running for Ontario. Trust me, you're okay with it. Okay.
It's so funny that the cover-up of something that wasn't a scandal yet created the scandal.
Exactly.
It's so amazing.
But there were so many court cases and so many investigations, and there were convictions and there whatnot. Like, say what you want about this government, there hasn't been one full-fledged, all-the-way police investigation. There hasn't been one criminal charge. There hasn't been one court trial. There hasn't been one conviction. There hasn't, like, compare and contrast.
Well, that's the norm mostly, though. Like most administrations in Canada do not end up with people with criminal charges. Most.
I know, exactly. Most.
Harper is notwithstanding, but I don't.
But that's what I say. But these are the people. These are the people that are saying that this government is the most corrupt in Canadian history ever.
Yeah, I know.
You guys who pleaded guilty in court to cheating in an election. The current leader who has a lifetime compliance agreement with Elections Canada, which technically is a deferred prosecution agreement.
Yeah.
Which he signed because there are photos of him wearing the shirt. People, it's like, you will be convicted.
I'm working on a piece right now about how because Joe Rogan loves Pierre Poilievre. But I'm writing a piece about how
Rogan just says he loves Poilievre.
But also Joe Rogan hates cults. So I'm writing a piece that legitimately ties Pierre Poilievre to the Plymouth Brethren Christian Church. And I'm trying to figure out a headline for it. That's really the only reason I haven't put it out yet. I can't figure out the headline because I don't want it to be clickbaity, but I want it to be compelling enough where if it just happens to be sent to Joe Rogan, where he's like, Pierre Poilievre is connected to a religious cult. No, I got to read this and see if I can get him to it. Fine, you don't like Trudeau. That's fine. I get why you don't like Trudeau, but don't put your stock in this fucking guy. Come on,
listen, for people who don't like Trudeau. Genuinely, not just because some conservative told him like this. There are plenty of reasons not to like him. There are plenty of reasons without having to invent any or stretch any or saying he's completely destroyed the economy or setting sadistic murderers free. There are reasons. I got plenty of reasons that this guy makes me pull out my hair every now and then.
Yeah.
Right? But again, you compare to the alternatives, not the almighty.
Well, I don't think that the NDP. I think the NDP gets shot on a little too much. I will vote NDP.
I know, but if you look at the cast of characters that we have now, there seems to be only one adult in the room. If you don't,
I disagree with your assessment of Jagmeet Singh. I think that when he tries to be a little snarky, it just doesn't suit him because he's actually kind of nice.
yeah,
But it doesn't mean that he's doing anything wrong either. He just doesn't deliver the snark very well. But like Trudeau's more snarky than Singh is overall. Like but Trudeau's a little bit better than Jagmeet. Not that much though. Like anytime either of them act negative, it kind of falls flat because they don't seem like tough guys in real life. You know what I mean? Like they just don't.
it's not the brand.
That's right. But I'm a little less likely to hit Jagmeet the way that you hit him because the way I look at it is this. Whether people like it or not, whether liberals like it or not, the pharmacare, the dental stuff, a couple other things or whatever, they work together, but the NDP kind of like dictated a few of those issues and a few of those bills.
Absolutely.
So, but at the same time, you don't send thank you notes because you're trying to replace that guy that you're working with. You're not trying to compliment him. And I think that I understand what you're saying. Maybe there's a difference in strategy where there could be a little bit more, hey, Jagmeet, a positive thing might actually get you to siphon more votes away from the Liberals. And he's just not delivering the punches very well.
Yeah.
But I don't think he's doing anything wrong by trying to throw a punch.
No, it's how I put it. It's not. You have to understand that my thing with Jagmeet Singh is strictly strategy. The reason that I have problems with him. And the reasons that I have a problem with his strategy is not because I expect him to send a thank you note to the Liberals.
Yeah.
Just there's a lane that's sitting there right there with neon signs flashing, just begging him to take it. And he just will not. And that lane is Canadians elected a minority parliament for a reason. They wanted us to work together. I have decided to listen to Canadians, and I went up and I signed that confidence and supply agreement.
Did they want us to work together, or did they want us to keep the government in check? Because there's a difference.
Either way. You
Right.
can frame this either way. But let's say, altruistically, they wanted us to work together.
Okay.
Because the disadvantage that the Conservatives have right now, it's been 2 parliaments in a row, that even though they get a lot of seats, it's not enough because the Liberals, with either the support of the NDP alone or the Bloc alone, so if the NDP gets tired, then they just go to the Bloc. If the Bloc gets tired, they go to the NDP, have enough votes to get something through. So the Conservatives are literally, no matter how many seats they have, the most impotent they've ever been in the House of Commons at this particular moment. So, and Trudeau has 2 dance partners that he can go back and forth between one or the other. And it's been like this 2 parliaments in a row. So if you take the TAC as the party that's working with the Liberals as much as possible to get your own agenda through, because the Liberals probably wouldn't have come up with dental care on their own and moved with it, whatever pharmacare there is, the anti-scab legislation, that type of stuff. These are NDP ideas, and Jagmeet Singh got them through. But he could take that and say, rather than go, you know what, the Liberals didn't want to do it. They resisted every way. We had to pull them by the hair, kicking and screaming and blah, 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 like this. When nobody in Canada has seen the Liberals actually resisting any of these things. Nobody's buying it. Nobody's buying those, like, we forced them. The force is his favorite word. We forced them. Maybe you did, but nobody saw them putting up a fight. So you acting like the big tough guy who made the Liberals bend against their will and bend them to your will to get something. No, when you have this whole thing, Canadians wanted us to work together, and we did. Look at all the stuff that we did. You want more of this?
But I don't remember.
Because the Liberals, you have to understand here. My reason why I'm saying this is because the way the electoral map is put out. West of Ontario, except for in BC, the Liberals have very few seats.
Mm-hmm.
But the NDP have more. And British Columbia is pretty much pretty much a three-way race. West of Ontario, the fight is conservative New Democrat, not conservative liberal. So if the New Democrats were able to make the case that giving us more seats, more power, even if we won't form the government. Because if this is what we did with 25 or 26 MPs in a minority government, imagine if we had 45 or 50 and it was still a minority government with the Liberals. We'd be able to put more pressure. We'd be able to get them to do more, to move faster. Because there's a lane there, and there's an appetite for that. There's a market for that. And they are just letting it slide by because I understand that you're supposed to want to win. And I'm not saying that and I'm not saying that Jagmeet Singh can't start an election and say, well, listen, I'm running to actually be the opposition, not to win, because that would be career suicide and a political malpractice. But to also stand there and determine election after election after election that your best course of action is to try to replace Liberals, which are Canada's natural governing party, in the mind of Canadians as Canada's go-to progressive option, rather than replacing the Conservatives as Canada's go-to government in waiting.
Right.
That's my that's my problem with them. It's like you've been trying to replace the Liberals as Canada's natural governing party or progressive option for 60 years, and it's only worked for you once, and all you got was opposition. And you got 10 years, right? Got opposition in a Harper majority, right?
But the Harper minority governments were such where I never heard anyone say, people want us to work with Harper. They were like, hold that motherfucker's feet to the fire and force legislation. But you're saying that Jagmeet should be taking a totally different approach and be like, people want you to work together. But I don't know if politics has ever been like that.
It hasn't been like that. Well, politics itself hasn't been like that. It's not because Canadians are not necessarily a fan of the adversarial nature.
Right.
Politicians go, well, politics is an adversarial, it's a combat sport. It's like, yes, but you need allies. Conservatives have no friends. Nobody wants to work with them. That's their problem. Mm-hmm. And my thing with the NDP is, after doing all this work to get pharmacare, to get dental care, to get anti-scab legislation, why wouldn't you campaign on getting more seats and keeping this agreement going?
He's just not good. He's just not good at tough guy politics. That's all it is.
But you don't have to be a tough guy on this one. This would play to his strengths. I'm a negotiator.
He could be a tough guy. You know what he should do? You know what he should do if I was him? He's a fake progressive. I would call Trudeau a fake progressive. He's not the progressive you think he is. He's closer to Poilievre than he is to the NDP. I would just play that forever, and I would find ways to make it true. I would say, look, like he railed against the Harper government for bringing veterans to court. And when he took over government, he stayed in court and fought against the veterans. He's not the progressive you think he is. That's what I would do. But instead he's like, I don't even know. Like, they're just shitty, hollow things like, 8 years of Justin Trudeau and now this. Like, you sound like an old lady. Like, just relax. Just like, be smart instead of tough.
Yeah. But that's what I'm saying. There's a lane there, and they're saying, listen, they are not as progressive as we are. Because with more of us, we can force them to do more and go faster.
Yeah. It'd be really interesting to see.
You want more done on the environment like this? Well, because we can push them to do more if you elect more of us. You want that UBI? Vote us. We'll put it like this. We will push them to do it. I'm just saying that there's a lane, right? There's a lane available for him to run that would appeal more to his strengths, because snarky doesn't work for him and tough guy doesn't work for him. But being the conciliator, being the idealist, being the mediator, and
something that contrasts him and Justin.
Yes, absolutely.
Like, you can't just be his like servant or his enabler or his partner. You have to separate yourself from him in a way that is smart and logical.
I'm the fire under his ass.
Yeah. We have to end it there because I'm looking at my son, and my son really needs to go to bed. Why? What's up? Go ahead.
No, I thought we wanted to talk more about Well, okay. Anyway.
I'm sorry. I have to defer to the child in my room, and right now I'm keeping him up to, and I'm certain he hasn't listened to a syllable of this, and I'm thankful because some of those syllables were monosyllabic, so I'm pretty happy about that. But Douglas, let's do a part 2 this week someday. Like honestly, like you can come back anytime you want. I've been on your show oh no, I've never been on your show, so we'll figure it out.
You have. You have.
I haven't. You keep saying that, but I was on a year ago when I got out of the mental hospital, and I think it was like they're there.
No.
I'm just joking. But we've been doing this for over an hour, and I'm gonna put my son to bed. But I want to continue. I think that you and I should have a conversation once every a couple times a month like this, because we don't necessarily have the same politics, but we both understand the game, I think, from a behind the scenes perspective in totally different ways. And
I totally understand how you see it your way, and it's not unreasonable.
It's tough being right, like you have to convince other people how right you are.
Yeah. See, the thing with me when it comes to these things is, right, I don't necessarily say these things to try to convince you. Sometimes I do,
Yeah.
but most times it's just, could a reasonable person see it this way?
We are so much better talking than typing. Let's just put it that way. Like we can't do
absolutely.
threads on Twitter because eventually it just gets to a point where it's just like, are we even talking to each other?
James, I'm not doing this anymore.
Yeah. And I'm like, doing what? Listening and then offering another argument? That's the way it's done.
I'm not doing this with you today.
But no, it's we need to do this more often because I talk to the only other person I talk to on a regular basis about politics on my podcast is Ryan, and once it's past 10 o'clock, Ryan's drunk, and then there's no. Seriously, I'm like, hey, scroll up in the comments. He's just like, people aren't going to change your lives, you fucking dummies. Like it's already past his his expiry date for the evening. You need Ryan at like 7:30, 8 o'clock. That's when Ryan is like at his best. And then once it gets to 10:30, he's just like, I don't know if I should say this, but I am for 10 minutes going to say this. But he doesn't sound drunk.
Right there, like I think he's doing it as a joke. Though. Stop standing for politicians; they all suck. Make them work for you. Don't defend. He's still better than the other guy. It's like we only get to vote for the people they put on the ballot.
I'm not denying this.
Not denying this.
Yeah.
But I would like to do something with you at some point, though. However, where we could exchange on, like, for example, why it is that we do what we do, and the title, what's behind our shows and where our motivation comes from, and that type of stuff, like what makes us tick, not just like what we think about politics, but
anytime you want to come back, brother, you're here. Douglas Connors from the Eager Beaver Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you everyone for stopping in and checking us out. I really appreciate it.
All right, brother. I'll see you tomorrow on your show, at least in the chat, because you never invite me on your show. Bye. Just kidding. That was Douglas Connors. No, you know what? Like, it's so amazing. This is my show, and if you scroll up in the earlier comments, it's like Douglas for PM. He's the greatest ever. Oh my God, he's like my God. And I'm just sitting here, just like, is anyone going to say anything nice about Jamesy? And it doesn't matter because I know that they're right. He's clearly a better human being as well. But I love him. Tomorrow night, we have Sage Francis. He is not only one of the best underground rappers of all time, but Questlove, during the Grammys on hip hop's 50th birthday last year, made a mural, or was asked to supply names for a mural of all the best rappers that never got a Grammy. And he was on there with like KRS-One and all these other guys, and Sage Francis's name was on there as well. And he's just really dope. He just did a track called Master Cleanse, and it's about the heavy-handed military in Israel and the plight of the Palestinians. It will be a really interesting conversation because he's very passionate about this subject. He's clearly not anti-Semitic about it. He is just very much, there's 30,000 dead people and half of them are women and children. What the fuck? And I understand that perspective. So we have Sage Francis tomorrow night, and Old Boy Rhymes, which is another rapper on that track as well, and his verse is just amazing. So that's tomorrow night. So we will see you then on Blackballed. Thanks, everybody.
Blackballed. Blackballed. Blackballed.